Well, this is breaking news. The Secret Service has met with local jail officials in New York to discuss preparations for President Trump if he is convicted, and that jury, which is 89% votes Democrat, and they've already kicked out any Trump supporters. If they vote that he's guilty of this paper crime, then he could potentially be put behind bars. Let me ask you a question. What do you think the impact will be on the markets if Trump is convicted? I was just studying this last week. It's like, wait a second. If half the country that is supporting Trump as the next president, if there's a belief that the system is that unstable, that corrupt, that dangerous, that it could put a man who is leading the election process as president, if they could attempt to lock him up, then the confidence in America's system of stability, of investment, of justice will have a serious hit, as it ought to. But that's also something which, if you anticipate that, you should be thinking about, well, where does that drive the market? I guarantee there are people that are already thinking that right now, smart people. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. I believe confidence in the American dollar is going to go down, and people are going to be moving over to gold, silver, precious metals, and other alternative investments that are going to protect their investment. That's why I'm telling you right now that if that happens, you're going to see, I believe you're going to see a spike in the price of gold and stuff like that. Now, I'm not a professional financial analyst, but think about what I just said. What do you think the impact will be if there's a conviction against Trump? It's going to have a deleterious effect upon confidence in the American system, and that includes economics. Go to lancewallnau.com /gold. That's where you got to go. lancewallnau.com /gold, or in your right now in your comments, what can they put in the comment line right there? Can they put gold in there? Yes? Put gold in the comments section if you're watching this on social media, and we're going to send you a link right away so you can find it for yourself. A 20-page report on why gold is always a great store of value, why it's been there for thousands of years. But I'm telling you right now, especially if your retirement accounts or IRA or other accounts are locked up in various other investments, gold is the place you want to park. In my perspective, it's the one place that's going to have a stored value, boom, because it's been going up for the last 4 months conspicuously. And I think what's happening in our judicial system is going to make it even more enticing as a stable source of value. That's going to be lancewallnau.com /gold, or put the word gold in the comment section and read the report, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's get into today's wild program. Today we're going to be talking about the inevitable Trump verdict coming out. And I want to give you a couple of glimpses into the recipients of Biden's student loan payment. I'm sure that you share with me a great concern that the college system is not educating people properly. And if you had any questions that we should be changing that, you'll be convinced of it after you watch this brief video. And do think about how these same students, Biden wants to buy their vote by paying for their education. Imagine that, a state-sponsored propaganda education where you pay for the propagation that you're about to listen to. So listen to this.
I'm Zach Sage Fox, and welcome to a Martyrs Memorial Day. Let's celebrate. Do you have respect for our military, or?
Not really. I think the military is horrible. The military, no.
Yeah. Nah, not really.
There's a lot more talk right now about the martyrs of Hamas.
Huge respect for them.
Really? Do you have more respect for them than our own military?
Yes.
Nah, America's mad, honestly.
Do you think that on this Memorial Day, we should also be honoring Hamas?
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
So we should celebrate the Hamas military, too?
Yeah.
The rape that was uncovered on October 7th, they beheaded babies. They GoPro'd a lot of their own murders.
No, that's not true.
No, I've seen it. Twitter.
Yeah, they did. They posted them chopping the heads off.
Oh,
I've seen videos.
I didn't know that.
Do you think we should be celebrating the martyrs of Palestine?
Yes.
Hamas.
Yes.
Show me things that Hamas has said about Jews in their charter. Article 7, the day of judgment will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. All Jews everywhere must die. Does that change your thoughts a little bit?
Oh, no, honestly.
Wow.
You know,
as a Jew, that's upsetting.
I can't speak for Hamas.
No, what I just showed you, that's Hamas speaking for Hamas.
Wasn't it their land first? I don't know. I don't know the history on it personally. Don't want to do this interview anymore. I feel like I've proven my point enough.
Well, you just said you didn't know anything. People are celebrating their military and they have no love for our own.
That's interesting, I'm not gonna lie.
The U.S. military has a long history of genocide.
What about the Hamas's military? Do you think they're genocidal?
I don't know why it matters.
Well, that's our show. God bless America and not Hamas.
All right. So anyway, Mercedes, this is what's interesting to me is how the guy doing the interview, how the moment he gives them, hey, they're saying they're going to annihilate and kill all the Jews everywhere. What do you think about that? Oh, I didn't know that. And about the beheading and raping of women and beheading of babies. What do you think of that? Well, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. The reality is, if you give people facts, they tend to go up. What? I didn't know that. Or it's total denial. Well, what does that tell you?
Are you asking me what is
Yeah,
it?
I'm asking you.
I
You're on the show for a reason.
I never know if you're going to keep going. Like,
No,
you're
no,
asking
I'm
me a
not-
question, but then you're going to answer
No,
it.
Matt, it's not a rhetorical question. I'm saying, Mercedes, you're
Yes.
here in the studio. Let's put you to work. What do you think? You were a student at one time.
I know. I just have outrage fatigue, Lance. I just feel like everything on here is just outrage after outrage, and I get fatigued. But yeah, I mean, they're the recipients of, payments. They've been indoctrinated, and quite frankly, we've got to try to persuade them. I mean, there are like cases of hope where you've got people coming out of their derangement and they're starting to learn truth. And so, God bless them for going to the campus and at least having these thought-provoking conversations. But it is grieving to watch the U.S. military just degraded.
It is, and
in the
I
way that it is.
hesitate to even put it out there. But I have to let you know. Now, at the same time, if we had footage, I could be showing you mass water baptisms happening in Michigan,
Praise
in
God.
the university, in the sports area. There's whole teams that are coming to Jesus, and it's a remarkable thing that's taking place. But I just want you to see the other side of the story there, because it's my job to let you know what's going on out there. Robert De Niro. I want to play this clip in real time. I want you to. Now, here's what I want you to watch. I'm going to tell you ahead of time why I think this is so hilarious. Two things. One, Robert De Niro is a great actor. You see him in the movie Heat. What's that movie? Silver Lining Playbook. I mean, certainly in The Godfather. A great actor. But I want you to think about this. Every time a Hollywood personality tries to do something significant outside of a script that someone else wrote for them, they have a tendency to really sound stupid. And what that tells me is a great actor like Robert De Niro, when you listen to him try to deliver this scene, he's got a script, he's reading it. I wouldn't hire him for this part. He is lousy at doing his job when he's trying to persuade you with his own words. He can't even say them smart. It's like he's struggling to read his own narrative. But if he's in a movie, we don't pay you, Robert, to have original thoughts. We pay you to say perfectly what someone else wants you to say. You're really good at other people's thoughts. You're really a mess when it comes to your own thinking. Let's watch this.
Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave.
I can see the guy standing behind him is going, well, wait a second. If you put a thought bubble over his head, it would be, didn't he just leave the White House once? I thought he went back to Mar-a-Lago. He was already in office, knucklehead, and he left. What is going on? This is when I talk about derangement syndrome, I mean, De Niro probably looks there like a character from a movie, which would be the deranged father-in-law or uncle who has, Trump derangement syndrome. Because But did you see what I'm talking about? How he can't read effectively his own script? It was terrible.
Well,
I would not hire him for that job.
Yeah, or they didn't pay him enough to memorize the lines. I mean, clearly he memorizes lines for a living, and he can't memorize it and deliver 5 lines. And you're right. I mean, it reminds you of like your uncle at Thanksgiving. He's never gonna leave. I'm like, what is this? And by the way, it's not original thoughts, like you're saying. It's the same thing he's been saying for 8 years now. So, and I'm going to say also, I think the American people, I don't know what happened in the 90s, right? You remember we used to really think like, oh, celebrities, wow, what did they think? Oh, I care about what they're thinking. No one cares anymore. It's like, and the level of entitlement to be shouting at me about your political views, like you totally don't understand the economy where it's out right now, that it costs like $4 or $5 to get just a basic, like what, 2 tacos from Chipotle is like $6 right now. I mean, if you get a whole meal, you had a drink, it's like $12. I mean, completely out of touch.
And you look at, the average person who's walking down the street has to look over their shoulder in Seattle and in San Francisco because they're afraid of getting mugged or beaten or jumped. Or in Washington, D.C., the carjacking is up 800%. And then you got a guy like him surrounded with security telling you about the threat to democracy perishing from the earth. Like you said, it's privilege on steroids. I'd be embarrassed, actually, to have that clip out there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's saying
I do a better job of reading commercials than he's doing there. And he's a great actor.
Yeah.
Only say what someone else tells you to say, Robert. And we like you when you don't have a thought that you tell us. Just tell us what someone else is thinking. All right, now go to Jack Posobiec. Breaking news, Secret Service has met with local jail officials in New York to discuss preparations for President Trump to go behind bars. Well, that's interesting. The Secret Service is meeting. Now, the Secret Service is meeting in New York, and part of the reason for this coordination ahead of time is some interesting data that came out. The Biden administration authorized deadly use of force in Mar-a-Lago. This is your Chris Wray in charge of your corrupt FBI department. This is your Merrick Garland, DOJ. And what did they do? They were, this shows the agents were not only authorized to use firearms at Mar-a-Lago, but they had medical personnel to treat anyone who might be wounded in a shootout. I don't recall them doing this, by the way, when they were going to collect any boxes from Biden's garage. Do you? But the DOJ was apparently ready to open fire to anyone who stood in its way in what reads as though it could have been a Waco-like siege. But you see, if you got people like De Niro in the State Department or in the DOJ or in the FBI, they're whack, folks. They are under the influence of a really demonic, weird spirit. They should be prepared also for a firefight with Trump and his Secret Service detail. And they were prepared to go door to door to terrorize Mar-a-Lago guests and even pick the locks in case Trump's hiding out in the closet, I guess. Trump wasn't even there. But who authorized the raid? Merrick Garland, who's really upset that people are saying things about him that are endangering. By the way, the FBI risked the lives of Donald Trump and his family. And I think, you know what I think it is? I think they were afraid that there was going to be locals. I really believe this. I think they were thinking, oh, the way that he's so popular with the crazies that we might have a shootout down there. And how idiotic can you get? But listen, it's scary. These are the days in which you've got protesters that are paid outside of Supreme Court judges' houses, allowed to be there by Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray in order to intimidate the justices. Kavanaugh, his wife and his 2 daughters, actually there was an assassination attempt from some nut job that came up to their property whose sister called and said he's on his way there. And this is that's not considered violent. But you know what is considered violent? Trump saying anything about what's happening to him. The judges are now gagging him from complaining because they're saying it's incendiary and could stir up violence. When they have protesters outside a judge's house, when they have guys that are on the order till they got handcuffs and they're ready to shoot to go get papers at Mar-a-Lago, that's considered prudent use of force. We're living in some very strange times, and I'm going to tell you that right now, Trump is absolutely right to blast the lawyers over the over the way in which they're trying to lock him up And I'm going to come to that in the next segment. I don't want you to miss it. We'll be right back. I want to take a moment to talk about the volatile financial time that we're in. And I want you to empower yourself with knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. Visit lancewallnau.com/birch and get a free information kit. Consider discussing how to shift your 401k or your retirement account into a tax-sheltered gold and silver account. Why don't you go to lancewallnau.com/birch right now and take action for a secure future. CNBC.com has an article, Judge blasts Trump lawyer as they make their final arguments because of his outrageous prison comment. The judge presiding over the New York criminal hush money trial of Donald Trump blasted a defense lawyer Tuesday for arguing to jurors. Here was what he said. You cannot send someone to prison based on the words of Michael Cohen. Well, after the jurors left the courtroom, the judge was furious. I think that statement was outrageous, the judge said. Someone who has been a prosecutor as long as you and a defense attorney as long as you have simply not allowed, period. It's hard for me to imagine how that was accidental in any way. You can hardly send a man who could be the next president to prison because of Michael Cohen's testimony, a guy who was actually exposed for embezzling $60,000 out of the Trump organization while he was on the stand, in addition to his other crimes. And so prosecutors said the payment was designed to prevent the adult film star from damaging Trump's chances to win the White House. That's why they want to put him in prison, because if they had only got this information earlier. I listened to Bill O'Reilly say something. He said they brought in the Enquirer, the National Enquirer, and said, you actually were paid in order to keep this out of print. But you see, a lot of times what people do is they embezzle money out of you by threatening to bring a story, whether it's true or not. And there was a guy who was the doorman at the Trump Plaza, the Trump Hotel or the Trump building over there, who claimed that he knew there was a woman who had Donald Trump's love child and that he was going to go to the Enquirer and expose it. This is before the election. And so he ended up making like $30,000. The Enquirer had $30,000 to suppress the story because it was just a lie, but it was just something the media, of course, Russia collusion people, they would have grabbed and said, and in addition to everything else, there's a woman who testifies that Trump had a child. So the guy was embezzling money, trying to get money with a fake, and it proved to be a fake story. The woman said, no, that isn't true. I don't know where he got that from. And the doorman was just trying to hustle some money. You can make money off of putting a celebrity or a politician in a jam in an election cycle. This stuff goes on. So the fact that a payment is made, O'Reilly said, is actually not evidence that there's an actual case. It's an evidence that you want to keep the discussion out of the media. Anyway, the curious thing about this, do you have any comments you want to make before I go into my next segment on the judge blasting? By the way, Trump went on Truth Social. He's so sharp.
Classic.
This guy is so sharp. I'll come back to Mercedes in a second. Trump is so sharp. You know what he said? He said in Truth Social, he said, get ready for this verdict, people. Get ready. I don't know why they don't let the defense make the final argument. What he's saying is the defense went first, and then the prosecutor goes, because the judge does everything he can to lock Trump up. It's like he's got to do this. His daughter has raised $90 million. She gets a percentage of that off of the Democrats in the effort to lock up Trump. I guess in one of her profiles, she has Trump behind bars. She's raising money in order to get Trump locked up. And her father is the judge, and the daughter makes money off the verdict. Whether he's guilty or not, she's making money off the case. This judge should have stepped down, but no. He's the ace in the hole because they can't beat Trump in the polls, so they got to try to lock him up. And what they're looking for is the words convicted felon. All right, any thoughts you have while I go on?
Are you sure? Okay. No, I just was going to say, here, listen, this is a free marketing tip. If he ends up in jail, somebody's got to smuggle him a phone, and he needs to go live. He needs to go live with other inmates, and they all gonna be like, Trump 2024. Like, it would be epic. It would go so viral. Best campaign video you could do, would guarantee him the election. So that was just my idea. For free.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that comment. Now, they want to get the words convicted felon out. So the Democrats are planning a press conference right after the announcement. They are planning on him getting a guilty verdict so that Biden can actually, I think Biden might even want to show up. This would be the stupidest thing he could do in order to put the word convicted felon out there so that they can use that information in order to drop. Now the race gets competitive. You see the polling numbers are going to get more competitive after that. Do you know what they did? They bounced 3 people off the jury who would have been potentially sympathetic to Trump. Do you know what? You know what they bounced them off for, Mercedes?
What?
Because they dared to have the Truth Social app. If they had the Truth Social app, they were eliminated from the jury. 89% of the jury voted of New York voted for Biden and voted for the Democrats, and they made sure that they ferreted out any potential Trump sympathetic jurors out of the pool. So I would say that there's going to be a real possibility that unless there's some very courageous people in New York standing up for Trump, it could be possible that they'll get a guilty conviction because that's what they want to do. Now, what I want to say is that if that happens, what will take place? Well, we would like to think that it will be overturned on appeal, but they also have the case in Florida. They still have the case that's going on in Atlanta, and they're looking to mount up this convicted felon record. But this is the one that they think will be able to get in there before the election. And, you know, as I read the Bible, I have to read the Bible to stay sane. And I believe that God is in control of what's happening. And as we pray, I think the Lord is at work. And I just happened to open up my Bible to a random verse, as the Lord often does, and I saw something. There are times when a conviction actually works out to the advantage of a message. And I think that that is what's going to happen. You'll see what will look like perhaps a polling impact, but what is going to really happen is those people that are on the fence, those people that are the independents, and those people that have been wondering what they're going to do are not going to respond kindly to this because they're going to see this as an out-of-control government that is going after a man with an agenda to lock up the innocent for political purposes. So my eyes dropped down, and he says, and I'm reading words from the Apostle Paul in Philippians. He says, I would that you should understand, my brethren, the things which have happened to me have fallen out rather under the furtherance of the gospel. Now, my point here is, I'm going to make a parallel, lest people misunderstand me. I'm not likening Trump to the Apostle Paul. I'm saying that God will use certain unjust situations in order to create a different outcome. Paul says, the things that have happened to me in my unjust imprisonment have actually accelerated the success of the message I'm trying to get out, so that my bonds, my chains, are manifest in all of the palace and in all other places. In other words, the advertising, boom, sort of intensified around the Apostle Paul. He says this, and many of the brethren in the Lord, waxing confident by my bonds, are much more bold now to speak the word without fear. Now, some indeed are preaching Christ out of envy and strife. In other words, they're going to grab hold of that imprisonment and they're going to use it for their own gains. But some indeed are going to be preaching Christ sincerely. And rather than adding affliction to my bonds, it's going to fall out rather to the furtherance of my message. Of course, if that happens, the probability is, if Trump even spends one day in jail, they'd love to get that picture. And then again, guess they're also worried about what exactly the fallout from that could be. Trump will, I believe, still be able to campaign. The thing will be put in appeal. And then if he's elected, boy, that'll be an interesting scenario. But I just want you to know that with the third trial, and look how the devil likes to set this stuff up, all the January 6 people who just like a grandma who walks in, prays for 9 minutes and walks out, talks to a policeman nicely, blesses him and leaves. She ends up getting convicted. You know why? Because in D.C., 92% of the people that are there are under the principality of that spirit. And so that's where they wanted to put everyone. Channel them in like cattle into where they've got control. They want to put Trump in New York where they got control. It's like the devil wants to put you under his dominion. But I do believe that many are going to wax bold, more confident, and even some that have been the never Trump preacher friends of mine are going to go, well, this is a dangerous precedent. And they're going to look twice at Biden. You just heard the earlier statement from that gal who said, hey, I was a former federal prosecutor, district attorney, and I won the case in 1980 for sexual harassment, and these guys were money laundering, and they were using me. And where does that story go? Meanwhile, Trump filed a check in a different category in order to keep it from the public, they say, and therefore he's got to go to prison for that. I do believe we're beyond a two-tier justice system. We've got a communist, corrupt, dangerous, Gestapo-like FBI operating with a dangerous, corrupt, Nazi-like DOJ. And the reality is, people are going to see it, and it's going to have a Mandela effect, I believe, which is when they locked up Nelson Mandela, he became a martyr. The idea of Trump being locked up is going to have a negative impact on the marginal voter. I even think that Kennedy will come out and say something about it, and it's going to have an impact on the support for Biden, and it's going to double the intensity of the people that have been neutral or guarded on Trump. They're going to go, hey, this is a dangerous precedent, what's going on here. You watch the Joe Rogans and the others, and even Bill Maher. I'll be interested. He's celebrating this, by the way, and then he's backing up and he's thinking, maybe he's rethinking this thing all the time. Final thoughts there, Mercedes?
Yeah, I don't know how this doesn't hand him the election. Like, I don't know how a conviction and imprisonment does not immediately, more so than it already is, handing Trump the election. I don't know how Democrats don't see that. They are blinded by whatever this Trump derangement syndrome is.
Yeah, it's the De Niro effect.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to start calling it the De Niro. They're having a breakdown mentally. They're losing it. And I think in the Hispanic community and with African-American males, they're already beginning to lose it. And I think they're going to find that people like the Bronx group that was out there, I love how the governor of New York called the people in the Bronx who came out to support Trump clowns. You didn't hear that repeated. I'm telling you right now, boy, if Trump had called somebody a clown, they would have come out. But that's what they think of you if you support Trump. Well, it's going to be an interesting week, and we're going to be here to cover it. By the way, you don't want to miss any of our broadcasts. Where can they find us? Because if we're not here, we're somewhere. Where are we, Mercedes?
You can watch us every day at lancewallnau.com/podcast and check us out there.
Thank you, Mercedes. We're going to see you again tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.